Our first speaker was first elected to Parliament as a New Zealand First List MP based in Warkworth in 2011. Passionate about opportunities for youth employment, she and her electorate staff worked with local businesses, schools, ITOs and government departments to create the Business Linked Internship Scheme. She spent the majority of her pre-Parliament time on parent-based fundraising and volunteer committees. Ladies and the few gentlemen, please put your hands together for the Minister for Children, the Honourable Tracey Martin.
Talofa, Kuiarana, Māori, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. First of all, thank goodness there was morning tea between me and Brian. Because I'm thinking, there's no way I can follow that. I didn't bring a backing track. I dance like Ellen. There's just no way I could do that. But with the amazing number of languages that Brian actually welcomed everybody with today, it reminded me I was at Torawhetu Kindergarten on Monday, actually. It's a great way to start the day, is to go to a kindergarten with a whole lot of little people who just love life. They are pleased to be there, they're happy to see their mates. They run in and out of the 3 rooms that are dedicated to the realm languages. So Torawhetu Kindergarten has a Cook Island room, a Niue room and a Tokelau room. And the languages, those are the languages that are spoken in those rooms. It was the only early childhood provider that won the Prime Minister's Award earlier this year, late last year. And they now have 16 centres. I mean, that's real life practice about how do we value that young person and who they are and where they came from and how they connect to their culture and their heritage and their whakapapa. It's a stunning, stunning example of just excellent practice that we could be spreading for the confidence of those young people. And I haven't even started my speech yet, but the interesting thing, and this is, I happen to be, so I'm a few things, and I'll possibly jump in and out of those few things. So I am the Minister for Children, and that's why you've asked me here. I'm also the Minister for Seniors, and some of you might want to see me later. I'm also the Minister of Internal Affairs, which means I'm in charge of births, deaths, marriages, boxing, gambling, pornography, the Fire and Emergency Service, some of you ladies might want to see me later, and anything else that doesn't fit anywhere else is inside Internal Affairs. It's a fascinating portfolio. The best thing about that portfolio is that the Right Honourable Winston Peters, who is the Minister of Racing, is below me. So I'm the overarching minister and he has to ask me if he wants to spend money. But I'm also the Associate Minister of Education with responsibility for learning support, alternative education, anti-bullying, racism, discrimination, anything that affects the well-being of our children. So just to build on what I just said about Torawhetu, those young children leave that environment proud and ready to learn and be successful, and within a not too short a period of time, they aren't that proud and feeling successful when they've gone into the education system. So it's, for me, one of the things about going and visiting Torawhetu and other kindergartens and other ECEs that are producing such wonderful, young, positive, excited young people, is that we need to spread that up the education chain, and it was always supposed to. Te whariki was always supposed to go up. It just got stopped. And the other thing that they're doing is that instead of having those children who need support with regard to education, are actually, the specialists are coming into the kindergarten. We're not referring the children out, because many of their parents, the families that you work with, they can't afford to take time off work. They can't afford necessarily the petrol. The environment itself is foreign to them. And when the specialists come into the kindergarten and the parents are invited by the kindergarten teachers to come as well, the messages from the predominantly Pākehā specialist workforce around, say, behavioural needs or language needs or whatever, can instantly be translated into their heritage language by the kindergarten teachers. So we are seeing a massive change in the ability to intervene earlier and support those young people to be the best they can be. But now let me start on the actual speech they gave me, so sorry. Look, it's a real honour to be here among people who make such a vast difference to our country. So I'm going to start with a bit of history, but I'm sure I'm telling you how to suck eggs. Family Start goes back a long way, obviously, because we're celebrating, 20 years? 20 years of Family Start. It started back in 1998 based on a pilot program already running in Christchurch. The first 3 sites established that year were in Rotorua, Waitakere and Whangarei. Rotorua at the back, woo! By 2005, the program was operating in 16 sites. With increasing evidence of success, Family Start expanded further in 2008 to reach 31 sites. And most recently, from 2016, it's been provided in Kaipara, Tauranga, Western Bay of Plenty, Taranaki, South Canterbury, and the Tūhoe area. Woo! As well as reaching into many smaller rural areas across the country. So 20 years on, it has grown to over 40 partner organisations currently supporting over 5,300 families and children living in more than 60 territorial authority areas. Family Start is also being delivered as a service to support families of prisoners, which is an exciting development involving more specialised skills sets to reach and engage with this really important group. We know that Family Start makes a positive difference to the lives of families, whānau and tamariki, and that the positive effects of supporting young people extend across all areas of well-being and out through communities. We also know that Family Start saves lives, helping more parents keep their babies and their young children safe. In the last 10 years alone, more than 40,000 families have been enrolled in the program. On average, families remain in the program, getting regular visits into their home for about 18 months or more. A study in 2016 estimated that Family Start had saved a life for every 500 families seen by that service. That's at least 80 lives saved over the last 10 years, because organisations like yours employed and supported committed and skilled people to reach out to parents, to walk alongside them and support them as they helped their children to grow. The work you've done has, of course, done far more than just save lives. It has helped literally thousands and thousands of families and children to be better supported and to live better lives. The world that you work in and the world that Oranga Tamariki works in aren't the worlds that most New Zealanders see. Of course, that's a good thing. What that means is that most of our families do okay, and that's as it should be. But it does mean that the work you do doesn't necessarily get the recognition that it should. So I want to thank you on behalf of the government, as a minister, on behalf of children, but just personally, on behalf of me, thank you for what you do on a daily basis. Family Start is a little bit older than Oranga Tamariki. Oranga Tamariki, while it has grown from agencies that have been around for a while, Oranga Tamariki itself is only in its 3rd year. And I don't want to downplay the work that has been done and the progress that's been made to date. It is no small thing to build a new ministry, to create new leadership and a change of focus, to get more carers and start to support them better, to get more social workers, to try and build better relationships with NGOs and iwi. And of course, all with the intent of looking after our children and our young people better. But that said, the Oranga Tamariki that was proposed back in 2015 will only start to be built from the 1st of July this year, next Monday. Over the last 2 years, we've had to focus hard on addressing some of the challenges we have supporting children in care, and we've had to invest in and prepare for the introduction of new legislation and quality standards. All of the work to date has been about the building blocks that allow over time for us to move from a crisis service to a care service. And let's be blunt, OT and I had to develop, pitch and get accepted by Cabinet a completely new operating model, and then I had to fight to get the money to be able to do it. We want fewer children in care. Oranga Tamariki has too many children in their care because we do not have an intensive intervention and coordinated and better supported early intervention services. If children and young people are in care, if they are in our care, we want them, as much as possible, to have the same sorts of lives and the same opportunities as any other Kiwi kid. We want them to connect to their families and whānau if at all possible, and we want them to leave care ready for the start of adult life and supported. For me personally, I want Oranga Tamariki and this government to be the government that delivers on the 30-year-old vision of Pu'o Te Atatu. And I don't know if you've read that document, because I've had conversations with a lot of people who've talked about it, but they've never read it. But we can't deliver on that vision alone. Others must step forward to support and be part of those solutions. That exactly was the point of Pu'o Te Atatu. But that is why in this budget, the wellbeing budget, we had an extra $1 billion for Oranga Tamariki, $1.1 billion to be exact. We are, 4 years after the report of the expert panel on everything that was wrong with our care system, going to start to have the Oranga Tamariki that was envisaged. A system that is built for children and young people and their needs. We're going to shift from a child crisis service to a child protection service. We're going to do better for the thousands already in care. We are setting and demanding higher standards of care. We're going to have more caregivers and support them better. We're going to have more social workers. We're going to have more money, not because it's the only measure, but because that's how you buy services and the things that children need, like books and computers and glasses and dental work. And we're going to help those young people leave the system to transition to good adult lives. It's been a huge hole in our system of care that young people didn't have this support. Over the first 4 years of the service, we expect it to support around 3,000 young people. I also need to mention the youth justice changes, which mean that most 17-year-olds will now be included in the youth justice system instead of the adult system from the 1st of July. The wellbeing budget provides extra funding to make this successful and to support the extra numbers of young people in the system with an increased focus on education, training and rehabilitation. I'm going to just tell you a little story. As the Minister of Internal Affairs, I forgot to mention I'm in charge of the National Library. I have visited every youth facility in this country, every community remand home, every care and protection home, and every whānau-centred home in this country within the first sort of 6 to 8 months of being the minister. And what I noticed in our youth justice facilities and our community remand homes was that the books that were inside those facilities had obviously been donated by the staff. There were libraries there, but they were very small. And I spoke to one of the young men as he showed me his room, and I saw on the up on his bookcase there that he had a very worn novel. Now, I had to challenge my own bias there. I didn't think that these young men would be reading novels. This was not a small novel, this was a big, thick novel. And I asked him, "Oh, who's reading the book?" He said, "Well, I am, miss, but I've got to really rush because there's a queue among the guys for it," right? It was a spy novel. And it made me think we're not doing well enough with regard to putting books inside these facilities, because if we say as a government we want books in homes, then we really need to surround our young people when we're having to remove them from their home with books. So the National Library has partnered with all of our youth justice facilities and is working on a way to actually, they will continue to book books under the services to schools model, and so 500 books based at the interest level, the age, reading age level, and so on and so forth, will be delivered now into all our facilities by the services to schools through the Department of Internal Affairs. But these young people in our facilities need the chance to get skills to stop their offending and to live responsibly in society. But most significantly, we're going to change the way we work with at-risk families to stop children coming into state care. And when I say I, and when I say we, I mean all of us. Not just those of us in this room, all of us. We're going to build a new intensive intervention service with specialist support workers to work with families and whānau of children most at risk of entry or re-entry into state care to support them to remain safely at home. And I know that many of you have expressed frustration with not always having the time to support you need to help families facing the most serious challenges. We want to change that. And over the coming year, we'll be learning more about how we do that together. I just had that conversation over a cup of tea, so I'll be going and sitting down with one of the organisations in this room when I have made a commitment that I'll be travelling into the Hawke's Bay to sit down with Ngāhiwi of Ngāti Kahungunu every 3 months, one day for every 3 months until we feel we don't need to. But my family's from there. So my mum was whāngai by Maud Mohi of Ngāti Kahungunu. And so our marae is tōponga marae out at Waimarama. So I spent most of my childhood with my nanny and my papa down in the Hawke's Bay. So it's not a hardship, I'll go stay with family. But Oranga Tamariki cannot solely be responsible for prevention and early intervention. The toxic stresses such as homelessness, drug addiction, mental health issues, these cannot be laid at a single agency's door and for them to be told to fix it. We all carry this responsibility. At a government level, the Child Youth Wellbeing Strategy will give us the starting point to hold all government departments to account for how their actions affect the well-being of our children. The joint venture is our opportunity to turn the tables on family violence. But it has taken decades to get us to this point. So it's inappropriate, it's unhelpful, and it's just unrealistic to ask a single department after 2 years to make it change. We will be turning our focus over the coming year to early intervention, working across government to make sure that there is appropriate and effective early intervention response in every community, and that all government agencies take firm and meaningful commitments to improving child wellbeing. That is exactly what the Child and Youth Wellbeing Strategy is about, that the Prime Minister and I are working on. We know that the early intervention response must be community-owned, led, and coordinated. The support and investment of government agencies and other key bodies must support the passion and commitment of the people that make a difference every day, close to the ground, close to our families. We recognise that your Family Start program and the wider work of your organisations have a massive role to play in early intervention. I have no doubt that you have what it takes to work with government's agencies, each other and your communities to support more children, young people, families and whānau to thrive. And I'll be working with other ministers and agencies to support you in that. But to reiterate, no government agency can deliver better outcomes for children on its own. And the government system isn't New Zealand's child care and protection system. Oranga Tamariki is a big part of it. The state has duties that it simply has to perform. But looking after our children and families is a job for all of New Zealand, and the many parts of that work must be, delivered by organisations like yours. You're the people who help people. You deal with the children and families I'm talking about. And let's get real, Oranga Tamariki is the last people they want to see at their door. The new Oranga Tamariki operating model in this year's budget also acknowledges your role. In total, we expect the new model and spending to involve around 900 new roles by the end of year 4. That's across areas like the new intervention and transition services, supported accommodation and community youth justice placements. We expect iwi, Māori organisations and NGOs to provide around about half of those required roles. There is also money explicitly for partners. For example, 26 million to meet cost pressures in the early intervention services and 29 million to better support iwi, Māori and NGO providers of care to meet the care standards. I want to acknowledge the challenges that you are facing here and now. I know that the costs of delivering home visiting services like Family Start have increased over the last few years. And I recognise that it's getting increasingly difficult to recruit and retain the skilled staff you need to provide the quality of service needed by the families that you work with. I also want to acknowledge that there is increased competition for talented frontline workers, including from Oranga Tamariki, where the recent pay equity claim has meant a significant increase in the gap between the salaries you can afford to pay your Family Start workers and the rates Oranga Tamariki pays social workers working in care and protection. So this is also another new thing I would suggest for you from government, which is a minister that actually doesn't try to avoid what is the issue. We started to recognise some of the cross pressures you faced last year when Oranga Tamariki committed to an increase in funding rates for all its social services. This increase was broadly in line with inflation and was the first across-the-board increase applied to social services for many years. This year, I recognise that the challenges you face are more significant, and I've asked officials to work hard to recognise these challenges. I'm pleased to announce that with some support from the recent budget, I can confirm an increase in funding rates for Family Start of 7.5% from this Monday. I've also heard that some organisations are reliant on performance-related payments just to break even. Hit the targets or go bust is not a partnering approach that I'm comfortable with. I can also therefore confirm that these performance payments will be included in your funding rates from next year. I hope that these changes will provide some relief from the pressures you face. I will ensure that officials continue to work with you over the coming year to ensure Family Start remains sustainable. We need you. We need your passion, your talents, and your commitments to your community. And we need you now to start working with us even more intensively around shifting closer to the ground around early intervention. You are already doing it. I do not want somebody else to come in and say, let's reinvent this wheel, when we already know there are trusted relationships, highly skilled individuals who are doing this work. But we do need to be closer together. We need to know each other better. We need to communicate more closely. And I think if recent incidents have showed us anything, communication and trust are the two things that we must build as we go forward very, very quickly. Kia ora, have a great conference. Thank you.
Look, on behalf of all of us, and we're all delighted, nobody disappointed, everybody's extremely happy, aren't we? You probably need a whole set of these, but here's one, and when you come to our next conference, you can get another one. Maybe they'll match. Thank you so much.